Hello, welcome to another week for all the occupiers of White City Place. I hope you're all keeping well and enjoying the spring sunshine, which we're so lucky to have right now. It's so lovely. The sun is coming through the window as I speak, and that always brings a really nice feeling of hope. And yeah, it just feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, if you're new to me, new to my meditations, every Monday I go through a meditation session with you and always talk for a little bit at the beginning because meditation, there's nothing too linear about it. It changes all the time. There are always new things to add, or new research comes to the fore, um, or things just happen that are maybe what's the right word for it. I don't know, could become mainstream news that we're dealing with. One example would be how to deal with the pandemic, or whatever it might be. But I usually talk about a theme and how we can bring mindfulness into that theme. Um, and then I run you through a meditation session, mindfulness session. And also at the end of it, I like to leave you where you are um, with the meditation, in that by the time it finishes, I want it to, if you are feeling like you're in a good place, I want you to be able to keep that same feeling. If you're in a good place with meditation, so you don't have to kind of like end it, or I start saying goodbye or anything like that. I just want you to be able to sit as long as it feels good and allow yourself to ease back into the day. There's nothing worse than having to kind of, you know, suddenly wake up and get on with your day again. It's really important to transition from meditation in a nice, easy, kind way to yourself as well. You can become a little bit more um, sensitive to the outside world when you've done a meditation session. In that, an example would be you're feeling good and nice and calm, and then you go out into the world and somebody gets in your way, or you trip up, or someone's rude to you, or something like that, something to kind of knock the balance. You sometimes feel it more when you've been meditating, because you're kind of in that nice space. So it's really important to transition out of the space at the end in your own time, and try and hang on to some of that good feeling that you've created for yourself in the meditation. So, I wanted to make this session really around anxiety. And the reason I wanted to do anxiety is because I believe there's a different kind of mindfulness meditation for everybody. I don't believe that everybody um, is always ready to sit down and be mindful right there and then. It takes practice. But particularly for those days when you feel really jazzed up in your mind, or something is really tugging at you emotionally and you can't let it go. Now, when we have things that we're constantly ruminating over, let's just say you had a upset with a family member or your partner, house member, someone close to you. Um, and we always try and work it out. We try to work out, how did I react, or why did they say that? What was that based on? Can I trust them anymore? And oh, I'm meditating. And then it'll come back and you go, oh yeah, but and then and also when we have these ruminations, quite often it comes out in a physical way. We can feel it in our body. We feel a little bit knotted up in the stomach, um, maybe nauseous, depending on how bad it is. Um, so it's very difficult to just switch all that off and expect to just arrive and be mindful. So I wanted to give a kind of alternative idea. And this is something that you can do when you are outside or even just moving around the house, go for a walk in the park. Ideally, that's a good one. Um, and because it is when you were in a very emotional state and you're ruminating, you're basically thinking about the past or you're worrying about the future. And those two extremes keep us from the present moment. Even if they're not extreme, any thoughts about the past or the future are still keeping you from the present moment if you stay embedded in those thoughts. So, one word for it is clinging. When you don't let go of a negative emotion, thought process that's going around and around in your mind, um, we say that you're clinging to it. Kind of in a way that you don't wanna let it go. Part of you doesn't want to let it go, but the other thing is it's you just can't let it go. And then the other thing about looking forward, it could be anticipation about something that's going to happen. It could be nerves about a meeting, an exam, a conversation you need to have. It could be any of those things. Um, and when we're constantly in the future thinking about that and anticipating that, we can also feel butterflies or the same kind of feeling of the anxiety, that kind of knotted up. I want it to be over. And you know those times because you know you just can't be in the present because you cannot stop worrying about the future, or you can't stop letting this emotional thing that's already happened, you can't stop it eating you up and really getting inside of you. So you feel it physically and mentally. So your body has a nerve that runs from your brain into your gut. So down into your pelvis, all the way down. And that nerve is called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve works really well with our parasympathetic nervous system, our relaxed response, which is exactly what we want when we're feeling anxiety. But the reason I mention it is because if you imagine that you are driving down the motorway at top speed, you've got the foot on the accelerator. So let's just say that's the anxiety, right? The travel is just your brain is going really fast. You can't stop this thing going over and over in your head. So let's just say you're driving down the motorway really, really fast. You've got the foot on the accelerator. That's your stress response. That's your sympathetic nervous system in operation. Okay. The vagus nerve is like the brake. So if you suddenly put on the brake, right? If you're driving a car and you suddenly put on the brake, you might go through the windscreen depending on how fast you're going, right? So the faster you go, the harder the brake, the bigger the impact. It's not a healthy way to put on the brake to slow down. And I feel that sometimes when you are experiencing anxiety, to suddenly sit down and have to meditate, it's like putting on that brake really, really fast. The idea with the vagus nerve is if we can sort of slow down that brake gently and bring ourselves into the perfect state of mind, which is a balance of both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So, what do we do then when we know that we need to calm down the mind, but we don't want to put on that brake because it doesn't feel really healthy to jolt ourselves or try and jolt ourselves into meditation? It's just we just know it's not going to happen, right? So back to my idea about if you can get to a park, ideally. If not, just even walking to the supermarket to get your food. If not that, if you're quarantining for whatever unfortunate reason, moving around your house. Movement is a great way to meditate when you have anxiety, bringing movement into it. So it would become a moving meditation. Now, I'm going to take that one step further and talk about something that I termed myself, but I discovered it was actually a real thing. And I called it the art of noticing. So let's just say, and I'm going to take you through this in the meditation. So I'm not going to go too deep into it now. I'm going to save it for that. But we are going to go on a little trip together in the meditation. But what it's like in real life terms, i.e., when you're not trying to sit and meditate, is, and you're outside, or you go to the supermarket, or you go around the house, or you go to the pub, it is basically stopping with every single thing that you come across. So let's just say you're in the house and you have breakfast. Let's just say you get your bowl. Let's just say you're having some muesli. I don't know what you have for breakfast, but I'm just going to tell you what I have for mine, and then we'll use me as an example. So I have a coconut bowl, and the coconut bowl is really, really smooth. So if I want to get myself right into the present moment, it's really good to use distraction. Sorry, that's something I should have just said at the very beginning. Distraction, which might not sound meditative, but it is a distraction to get you away from what's troubling you, what's giving you this anxiety. Distraction is really good, because even though it's a distraction and it's a thought or it's a thing that you're just about to do, it's present moment. These distractions I'm going to mention are present moment distractions. So it stops you from going back into the past or into the future, if you can just concentrate on each thing as they happen. And because they are one thing after the other, it gives your brain less chance to fall back into the ruminations of the past or the worries about the future. When our brains stop and focus, which is a lovely mindful state if you're up for that another day. When we're in that state of mind, it's really nice to quieten down the mind and have that space. But if you're in anxiety, you're not going to get that quiet space between thoughts very often. So these thoughts, distractions come one after the other to keep you focused in the moment. It doesn't matter that you're going from one thought to another. It's not thoughts anyway, it's real life things. So I hope it'll make more sense as we do it in the meditation. But for now, back to my breakfast bowl. I'll feel the bowl. I feel how smooth it is. So I'm kind of with the bowl. I'm in the present moment. It's not an imagined thing, it's real. And then I look at, or I pour the oats into my bowl. Notice the packaging, let that fall into the bowl, look at those, and I get my frozen fruit, which I've been thawing. So I notice that as it thaws, it's got a little bit of frost on the top, and I watch that defrosting. Then when they're ready, I put them into my bowl, and then any toppings I want. Then I get the spoon and I feel the weight of the spoon in my hand, use the milk, whatever I need, all ready. And then when I sit down, this is when the real noticing starts. So you can do this with anything that you eat. Notice the plate it's on, the bowl it's in, the spoon, the fork in your hand, whatever it might be. And then you start to really notice each mouthful, how your spoon or fork goes into it. What are the colors? What are the textures? What's happening in there? And then as you take it to your mouth, slowing down every mouthful. Also, when we're in anxiety, we don't feel like eating some of the time, but if you do eat and you've got this kind of chronic stress that just goes on and on, you'll be eating at some point. We eat a lot quicker, in the same way that we breathe a lot quicker. So you slowly eating, noticing every bite, closing your eyes maybe when you've taken a bite, and really feeling it in your mouth. How does it work? How does your tongue move? How do your teeth come together? How does it all feel in your mouth? And then that swallowing sensation. All the things basically that we never notice. We never do that stuff, right? Very rarely. Unless we were in a new restaurant or something like, oh my gosh, this tastes really great. Then we'll start talking about something else to our partner or friend or whatever. In the old days when we went to restaurants. Yeah, so it's this idea of being very aware. And then you know you've had breakfast or you get bored of doing that, you kind of put it down and then you can kind of maybe walk and notice whether you put your heel down or your toe down first. Which way do I walk? Cleaning your teeth is another great one. Noticing, hearing the water, feeling the water, noticing the toothpaste go onto your brush. How does it feel on my teeth? Am I going all around my teeth? How does it feel in my mouth now? So many different things that you can tune into, even if you don't go anywhere and you're in your house. So it's a really great habit to get into in those more anxious times to really slow down, not slow down your mind so much, but you're just not in the future and you're not in the past. And that's a really good place to be. We're much happier when we're in the present state of mind. So it's a way of keeping you more in the present to stop you going into the future and into the past. And then one other thing I just want to mention about that is self love. When we are trying to work out about an argument we had with somebody close to us or who was close to us, a family member or colleague, whoever it might be, friend. Um, there's some hurt there, and then we try and work out what was our part in it and everything else like that. So, love who you are. You have to really build up that self love. We spend so much time worrying about what other people think of us. We forget to give that love to ourselves. So, I'm going to be bringing a little bit of that into the meditation today. So, knowing all of that, if you are suffering from anxiety today, you could maybe just have this playing so you can hear it. And you can maybe even just walk around your room as I'm talking. It's fine. It's entirely up to you. But if you choose to sit, then close your eyes. If you're walking around the room, however, you're feeling very anxious, then just allow your eyes to be slightly open. So you've got a very soft gaze, so you don't bump into anything, but you're very much in your own body, and you can experience, you can sense things, and you can just kind of walk around nice and slowly as we do the breathing. So we always start with breathing. That'll slow down your mind. It helps to slow down your mind. So if you are walking around the room, that's fine. You can just really focus on your breath. Be walking really slowly. Really try and slow down your movements as I talk. All right, let's get started anyway. So either with a low gaze if you're walking or sitting on your seat, mat, floor, bed, sofa, doesn't matter. Just resting your eyes, nice and easy. So let's notice how you are breathing right now without any control about how you're breathing. Just notice how the breath comes into your body and how the breath leaves your body. Noticing that coming in. At this point, there is no right or wrong way to breathe. You're just breathing. And then let's take the attention to the feet first, so that if you're walking around your room, it's just as easy to take the attention to the feet, or if you're sitting, it's the same thing. So just taking the attention to the heels of your feet. So if you're walking, you can feel the heel as it touches the ground each time. Maybe you can have a little bit of a slow rhythm as your heels touch the ground. If you're sitting, it's really just about bringing the awareness into the heels of your feet. Let's just take that awareness now into our ankles. And into our knee joints. Does it feel warm inside the knee? Does it feel tight? If you're walking, you can notice how often you or how much you need to bend your knees, and then how it straightens if you feel the hamstring or you don't. If you're sitting, however, you can take your mind right inside the knee to see if you can sense any softness there. And then up to the hip joints. If you're walking, you can notice whether the hip joints feel even. Are you kind of putting more pressure onto one foot when you walk, which you would sense in the hip? Or do you feel quite even through the hips when you're walking? Do the hips face the front? Do they tend to go out to the sides? If you're sitting, just trying to get an idea of the hips softening as you're not moving them at the moment. So softening into the hip joints. And then taking the attention to your lower back. How does that feel? Getting a sense of the very lowest vertebrae and the top of the sacrum, where they meet. If you're walking, just noticing if there's any movement or stress on your lower back as you walk. And as you're sitting, just getting a sense of where that is. And if there is comfort there, or the same thing, if you're walking, same thing, does it feel right? Is there any pressure there? Is your back too rounded, or does it feel like there's too much of an arch? Or do you feel like you're kind of somewhere in the middle? And that can be the same if you're walking around your room as well. Allowing your shoulders to soften. I might just add, by the way, if you are on your feet and you're walking, feel anxious, if at any point you feel the anxiety subside a little bit, then of course feel free to then sit down. You could always get up again if you need to. So at any point, you're just really tuning into your body, your mind. Yeah. And your shoulders, do they feel relaxed away from your ears? How about your neck? Does your chin feel too high? So you're creasing the back of the neck, or is the back of the neck nice and long where the chin is just slightly tucked under? What about the crown of the head? Could you feel, if you imagine somebody has a little rope attached to a hook at the top of your head. So imagine the crown of your head. Just get a sense of where it feels in the center of your head, where the crown of the head is, as if somebody just been tapping on top of your head. So you get an idea of how that feels from the inside. Imagine there's a little hook there. And just imagine as well there's a rope from the hook and just somebody's just gently tugging it. Does it feel like the head can raise a little bit away from the shoulders, almost as if you're lengthening the neck, giving it a little bit more height? Or it might just be the idea of that sensation. It might not actually physically happen. Just getting a sense of either walking tall or sitting tall. But make sure if you're doing either walking tall or sitting tall, that you're not compromising your belly. You might then start to breathe in, and as you kind of lift up your shoulders, just keep that nice soft belly breath. I want your belly to be as soft as it can be, so that then your breathing apparatus has as much chance to expand as it can. If we hold the breath in, then we restrict that breathing mechanism, and we really want to focus on the breath as well. Okay, so this is a nice one for if you're walking around the room and also if you're sitting. We're not going to hold the breath in any of the exercises today, because if you are moving, I don't want you to have to hold your breath. It's not so good when you're moving, it's fine when you're sitting. But we are going to make the out breath longer than the in breath with a view to slowing down the breath, which then helps to slow down the mind. So if you are slowly moving around your space, it's the same as if you were sitting, same breath exercise. All right. So we're going to be breathing in for 5 or 6 and breathing out for 6 or 7 or maybe 8. And I'm just going to do a couple with you so that you can then do your own ratio, whatever is best for you. We're all very, very different. So when I count to 3, I want you to let all of your breath go. Let all the breath go on that count of 3. So 1, 2, 3. Let all the breath go. Breathing in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathing in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Keep going in your own time. If you find at any point you feel like you're running out of breath, take an easy in and out breath between each counting breath. So, in other words, be kind to yourself. Don't worry if any thoughts come into your mind. Just stay with the counting of the breath. It might happen subconsciously. Thoughts might take over a little bit. That's okay. Notice that the counting is subconscious and maybe transfer it, make it the conscious breath, and let the thoughts be subconscious. I'll just take a couple more of these in your own time. Don't rush it, just nice and easy with the breath. While you're doing it, just notice if the body feels soft or if you've activated some muscles that you don't need to use. Hold tension, might be a clenched fist or a tight jawline, frown maybe. or it might be a tight belly, allowing everything just to soften. All right, so you've come to the end of that last out breath. If you are walking around your room, just notice if you feel okay to sit down now. And if you do, you can. If you're still quite wired, then just continue slowly walking, maybe getting slower with the pace. I'm going to take you on a little journey as promised now. So we're coming to the park gate, and you put your hand on the gate to open it. And as you push the gate forward, you can hear a little bit of a squeak. It's an iron gate. The iron feels quite cool in your hand. And then as you let go of the gate, you notice it's on a bit of a spring, so it makes a little bit of a clattering noise as you let go. That's fine. And then you look down at the path and see that it's gravel. So you slowly start to walk up the gravel path, and you notice different colors of the gravel beneath your feet: the browns, the grays, the beige colors. And also you notice that there is the occasional little weed trying to poke its little green leaves out of the gravel. There's the odd little daisy as well. And you notice that the path has also got a wooden piece that goes all the way up on either side, which just separates the gravel path from the grass banks on either side. You can hear the crunch of your feet on the gravel, shoes, whatever it is. You could be barefoot if you like, if you can imagine that. And you notice the trees that you pass. One in particular, it's got a very knobbly, wide girth, and the bark is very rough. It makes you want to put your hand on it. So you walk over, so you step onto the grass. And you put your hand on the bark of the tree, and you can feel the rough texture underneath your hand. A little piece comes off by mistake. But you hold that piece in your hand, and you notice that the underside of it, the bit that was closest to the center of the tree, is really smooth and silky. And you put your hand back on the tree where that piece of bark was, and you can feel the smoothness of the trunk underneath. And then you hear a little bit of a rustle, so you look up the tree, and you can see there's a little squirrel staring at you, his big eyes looking at yours. He's got his little front feet together, holding on to the case of a monkey nut, a little peanut. And then he realizes that you've got no food for him, so he runs away and scurries back down the trunk, and you watch him run away, his big bushy tail bobbing behind him as he runs into more woods, more leaves, and then you can't find him anymore. He's gone. So you walk back onto the gravel path, and you notice somebody go by with a little stroller. It's a red stroller, little baby inside with a blue beanie, a little cuddly toy, and the person that's pushing the pram has got a big yellow hat on, protecting them from the sun, but a really beautiful white billowy dress on. And you notice that particularly because there's a little bit of breeze, and it looks like it's made of silk, and the wind catches it as she walks by. You walk on a little bit further, and you pass a really cute furry dog. Stops and looks at you, but it's panting with its tongue hanging out because it's obviously had a big run. And then you come a little bit closer to what looks like a rose garden ahead. And you can see about 20 little trees. So you decide to go over there. And as you get closer, you can see that each rose tree has got a different color on it. You've got yellow roses, pink roses, light pink, dark pink, red roses, orange roses. So you go up a little bit closer and you smell the first one you come to. This is an orange rose. You stick your nose in and have a really nice smell of the scent. And then you just look at it for a while and see all the different layers and how clever it is. Some of the petals are open more than others. As you go into the center of the rose, some of the petals are so tight that they haven't opened yet. To put your hand on some of the more open petals, your first finger and thumb, and you rub very gently the petal in between your finger and thumb, and you can feel that soft, velvety touch. And you notice that even though the sun is out, it was raining earlier on, and some of those little drops of rain are still sitting on the rose. And you notice the reflection of the rest of the garden and the sky in one of those little raindrops that's just sitting on top of that orange rose. And because of the earlier rain, the scent of the soil that the rose trees are standing in is even stronger than usual, which also heightens the smell of the rose. Put your hand on the stalk of the rose and you can feel the little jagged thorn a couple of inches down. Just put your little index finger on the top of that just to feel it. And how sharp that is in contrast to the smooth stalk. And then you go along a couple of trees and come to a bright yellow one. And that smells slightly different to the orange one. And then you can see on the rose tree next to you, which is a pink one, it's the light pink one, that there's a bee inside it. You're not too close to be worried about it, but close enough to really see the bee and its little fluffy body and the black and yellow stripes. But also its wings, how incredibly paper thin they are. And yet it can lift, those wings can lift that little chubby body and take it where it needs to go. You take another nice deep breath in through your nose so you can smell the soil again. Then you can hear some water trickling, which sounds a little bit like a fountain close by. So you walk towards the sound of the water, and you can see it is indeed a little pond with a centerpiece in the middle of the water spouting out in about 10 different angles and dropping into the water. And you notice as you watch one of the spouts of water, they're all the same, but when you really focus on one of them, you can see each drop as it comes out of the spout. It's in the dense water, and then it starts to split as it hits the air just before it drops down into the pond below. You notice that it breaks into more water droplets, and then it slowly falls into the water below you, but you're really mesmerized by each drop of water as it comes through this big chute of water, breaks open into many drops, some of them very big, some of them much smaller, some of them so tiny it's just like a spray. And you notice that as each drop hits the water, it expands into little ripples. So much movement in the pond. You can feel the sun on your back as you're standing looking at the water. So if you have your shoes on, you decide to take them off and you dip your foot into the water, just up to the ankle. And it feels really cool under the water. You can feel the line around your ankle where it's dry above and wet below. And underfoot, it feels a little bit slimy, just a little bit, where some of the natural, organic, fungal moisture has been hanging on to the pond edge. It feels so nice and cool. You can kind of waggle your toes a little bit in there. And it's really quite cold in the water, so after even just a few moments, you feel it's time then to take the feet back out again. So you step back onto the stone around the pond. And because the sun is shining on it, it feels really nice and warming to your feet. You can feel the sun drying your feet. But you do notice the odd little drop still on your feet. It slowly rolls off down the side of your foot. You take a little step back and see your footprint, your wet footprint on the stone. And then you step back again and you arrive on some grass. And that feels really nice under your bare feet because your feet are still a little bit damp. But the nice smooth grass feels really welcome. So you decide to hold your shoes in your hand and just walk along barefoot for as long as it feels comfortable. So you're enjoying the feeling of the grass under your feet. Sometimes it feels quite spongy, and other times it feels more barren, where the sun's been at it. And then you keep walking, and then you come to some woods, and you realize maybe you need to put your shoes back on again. So you sit down on a little bench, and you can feel the wooden bench is warm, where it's been heated up by the sun. So you put your hands on the bench first, and then sit down. And you have your eyes closed right there, just so you can feel the sun on the back of your eyelids. And with the sun on the back of your eyelids, you can see that it's a lot lighter, even with your eyes closed. So you just look at the back of your eyelids for a moment. So if you are moving around still in real life, then just stand still for a moment and close your eyes. And just see what's happening behind the eyelids. So whether you're standing in real time or you're sitting in meditation pose right now, still imagine you're sitting on that seat, allowing the sun to beam onto you. And as you sit there on the seat, start to cast your mind back and remember your trail to where you are right now. So going into the park, there was the iron bar, there was the squeak it made, there was the gravel footpath, there was the big tree with all the knobbly bits, the bark, the piece that came off in your hand, there was the squirrel looking at you, its little peanut, and then running back down and running away. There was the pushchair that went by with a little baby and the blue beanie and the toy, and the lady pushing it with the long white dress and the yellow hat, the dress catching the sun and the breeze. And then there was a dog, the panting dog. And then you saw the rose garden, all the smells and scents, the bee, the raindrops, the sound of the water getting close to the fountain, the drops of water as they came out of the spout and hit the pond. How mesmerizing that was. Taking your shoes off, going into the water, feeling it underneath. When you came out, feeling the sun on the stone with your feet, drying off onto the grass, all the way until you got to the seat where you are now. Every little present moment that brought you to this moment right here. So you reflect back on that as you have the sun hitting your eyelids and just feeling at one with yourself, with everything around you in that park, that imagined park. Or maybe you can feel it, maybe you're in the park in your mind. Allowing yourself this escape. But really, you're not escaping. You're here and now in this present moment, feeling all of those things in your mind's eye. And as you look at the back of the eyelids with the sun shining through, you might give your sense of self a little boost. Choosing a word that is right for you. If you're experiencing anxiety, it might be calm, might be the word that you need, or it might be forgiveness, or it might be gratitude, which is a very interesting one when you're feeling anxious. Gratitude. It's a good one to try. Or it might be self-love, it might be love. Whatever word it is that you choose, put a little I am in front of that word. So, I am grateful, or I am loved, or I am love. I am happy, I am calm, whichever one you choose. While you're looking at the back of the eyelids, just affirm it to yourself, just by repeating it. I am. Allowing the sun to come through the eyelids as you repeat that over and over and over, gently to yourself. And this is where I am going to leave you with that present moment mindfulness. And I hope that it's given you some sense of calm, of self-worth, of love. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Make sure that you transition away from this meditation in a very gentle way when you're ready.